Woo! This is a Scott and Ivor weather emergency. Weather
This is a
emergency.
weather emergency.
This is why we're
weather
playing
emergency.
this song. This is nothing to do with copyright. We're playing it because, God damn it, our skies are black, and we need smoke on the water, fire in the sky. Everybody, this is what we're dealing with.
These wildfires. So you're in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So what's it like down there?
Terrible. It was actually. When I saw it yesterday, it was like an orange alert, and it just is. It might as well be 5 in the morning or 9 o'clock at night the way it is. Right? There's a bit of sun coming through on Friday when the day that we're taping, but the last day or so has just been brutal, and you can feel it while you're out there. You feel it in your lungs. You feel it. It's just it's not a situation we're used to. In life and what we've been used to previously. And I guess that's what we have to deal with now, you know.
I was saying it's like an opening of a science fiction film outside, you know, and yesterday was the yellow and orange mix. And, you know, I was dog sitting Finn, which is Pamela Blair. People remember Pamela Blair from CFNY. Her and her husband, Jeff, their dog, big husky dog. And we actually went out. He seemed to be okay out in the. Did you take Ella out, or did she?
Ella's
bothered by it.
She's not too bad. She was more bothered by the extreme heat the day before, and she'll just plonk down in front of a tree and go, "I'm not going any further." So we do smaller walks, but we'll add one more there to try and make it up. But this wildfire stuff, it gets me thinking about, oh God, is this what a nuclear winter would be like? And what's noticeable is the temperature drop. You know, it went from whatever 36 degrees down to 20 degrees or 25 degrees or whatever quite quickly. But that's because the sun's being blocked out. So
So it's interesting you say that, because same thing with, this is a husky dog, big fur coat, and hated the heat and loves to be outside. And yet this is the first time I've seen the dog, like, I'm going inside where the AC is. But that was my concern, the heat. So we went out because he really wanted to go for a walk. So we went outside, and that was my first surprise outside of the you could taste and smell the smoke, was that the temperature was vastly cooler compared to the day before. And you're right. Like, I'm thinking because of the sun being blocked. That's scary.
And I went into the cupboard to look at, I'm going, I think I've got a couple of boxes of masks left over from the pandemic. And I'm like, I'm probably going to put a mask on, because this is just, it's not good for you, obviously, respiratory, and guys that are in our age group. And it's just not, it's not a good thing. So hopefully we can get through it. I mean, I noticed that they were talking about the World Cup and going at that final on Sunday. I saw pictures of New York City today, and it's in New York City now too. So that's a big concern for that whole situation. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Scott, did you watch the England-Norway game a few days back? I don't know if you watched that or not. Did you?
No, but I watched the England and Argentina game.
Oh, you did?
Parts of it yesterday, just to see those goals. That first English goal was spectacular. I don't know if you saw that. The way he just kicked it from the side of his foot was brilliant.
Yeah. I
never saw that other game, no.
What made me laugh on that was the commentator, right? And I don't know if this commentator was specific for Canada or it's the international one. I know it's a different one in the US, but they showed Mick Jagger up on the screen towards the first half of the game, or the first quarter of the game, when England was not playing so well, and the commentator goes, "And there's Mick Jagger. He's not getting a lot of satisfaction the way this English team is playing right now." And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the sort of line that I would have used, right?
Just slightly cheesy.
It was really cheesy, but
how do you not go there, right?
He's been dealing with us for 60 plus years, Scott.
Shit, that's funny. That's
anyway.
funny.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that Rolling Stones record is doing after all of the hoopla last week, and it was fun. It was fun to to get in there and do our thing with that. So
Yeah, for
more to
sure.
come on that. So
For sure, for sure. Okay, just speaking of last week's show, you had a couple of corrections, I think, in the last couple of weeks. We
yeah,
wanted to
from a couple of weeks
clear up
before,
a couple of
actually. Yeah,
slight little errors.
when
Sometimes we make a little error here and there.
we do here and there. We like to correct ourselves where we can and where somebody will call us out. I did mention when David Clayton Thomas had passed away, um, that we had mentioned Mike Bloomfield as being the connection to Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and it was in fact one of his other musical partners was Al Cooper, and Bobby Colomby were the original part of the original Blood, Sweat, and Tears, who David Clayton Thomas had the huge issues with over the years and was never able to sort of put a touring band together like the Guess Who has. And Bobby Colomby ended up being a very high up CBS executive, so he had a leg up on David Clayton, unfortunately. So that's that story for you. The other one was Scott. I'm not going to get any ice cream. As we are now settled that Ivor gets no ice cream on our Eddie Murphy story last week. I had inadvertently said that the album was Raw, that the ice cream skit was from. It was from Delirious, and that was pointed out by a couple of our listeners who, pointed out that out to
Know
me.
their stuff. Yeah.
So I said, well, I guess I don't get any ice cream, but somebody said, you know what, Ivor, you still get ice cream for trying. So there you go.
All right. Do we have, before we jump in, and this week we're talking about the week of July 20th to 26th, a couple things before we jump in. We're going to do the 2000s first this week. New concerts, Ivor, do we have anything?
Well, I just have some reminders of some things that are
Okay.
out there. I mean, the things are so busy with World Cup and lots of these festivals and things that are going on. I think people lose some track of things. So just some reminders. Viagra Boys coming to history on the 2nd of October. And a couple of things in Buffalo at the Outer Harbor, which is a great place to go and see something down on the lakeside in Buffalo. Canadian act Silverstein on Friday, August the 7th. Those guys out of Oakville. Alexis on Fire on Wednesday, August the 12th. They're performing Crisis in full. Here's a great one for CF&Yers. Friday, the 14th of August, is the Violent Femmes with special guest 5440. And
Nice.
then on the 15th, we have Arkells with Maine. And I know it's, Arkells sells so many concert tickets on the Canadian side, but when they cross the border, it's usually a little easier to get tickets. Peter Hook is coming back to town on the 27th of August at History. Social D, Social Distortion with my favorite Australian band, The Chats, on September 14th and 15th, also at History. One that, Scott, maybe me and you might go to, the Charlatans at the Danforth Music Hall on the 20th of September.
Oh,
The Sex Pistols 2026, Cook, Jones, Matlock, and Frank Turner, September 21st at History. Brandon Flowers of the Killers doing a solo gig, 24th of September at History. Public Image on the 26th at the Danforth Music Hall. Tricky on the 8th of October at the Danforth Music Hall. And going into November 17th, Gene, the Smiths
cool.
wannabe from the
Yep.
90s at the Danforth Music Hall. Couple of new announcements. Danny Elfman, September 10th at History, and Lucinda Williams is playing at the Horseshoe on October 11th and 12th. And this one will have just passed us as we put this one up. Last night, Shania Twain played at the Horseshoe, first time ever.
Oh, wow.
The record out. She announced a surprise gig. She never played at the Horseshoe in her, even in her very early days. So she thought she'd add that to her list of places to play, just like the Tragically Hip on the
Very
Checkerboard
cool.
Square. So Shania Twain at the Horseshoe. So
Imagine that.
there you
That's
go.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool. What was that first band to get? Was that the Viagra Boys?
Viagra Boys. You check them out, Scott?
That's hilarious.
They're good, very good band.
They had a good laugh coming up with that name.
Why not?
I do like that. All right.
So a couple of other little things I wanted to mention. Of course, this past week, Jack White in town and Gene Poitrine opened for them, or for Jack White, and did 4 nights at the Mod Club. But I absolutely loved, and Scott, please post this because you're the guy who does most of the posts, is, Jack White does a unique poster for each show on his tour. And the one he did for Toronto absolutely blew me away. It's one of the best Toronto concert posters I have ever seen. And I say that because he basically did a recreation of Sam the Record Man the storefront of Sam the Record Man, changing it to Jack White, with the storefront look in it as well, incorporated from Sonic Boom. And he also put the images of Angine de Poitrine, his opening act, in that image. I think it's absolutely marvelous. And then the other thing he did was he name checked 42 independent record stores in the GTA in that poster. I think it's just such a great tribute to independent music in Toronto and where to go and buy your records and things. And I just say, Jack White, you always do it right. I love you as an artist. I love the music that you make. But when you bring it to the public this way, I think it's just fantastic. I can't get one of those posters to save my life, but if I ever see one out there, I'm certainly going to add that to my collection. So thank you to Jack White, and the artist who did it is absolutely amazing. Matthew Jacobson, he was the former head of design for Third Man Records. He's got his own company now. He also does all the special posters for Beck and Spoon, but they're just amazing images. But it just brought it home. I was like, wow, you did a tribute to our city, and you did it so well, and you did it with a classic record store. So thank you.
We will find that and post it. That's awesome, Ivor. That's very, very cool.
Just on the merch front, our cfnydoc.com is the place to go to get our merch. We are fully stocked. Now, I will say for you people that if you're going to get down to Niagara-on-the-Lake region and you want to go to the CFNY Doc Niagara warehouse, message myself on the Music Milestones Facebook site, and you could come to the Ivor Hamilton household. I had Jerry out of California came all the way up to visit his family, but he stopped.
Hi, Jerry.
Stopped into my place, and I gave him the tour, and he bought a bunch of merch. So I'm set up to do it at the house, and I got my little stash here. So if somebody wants to stop in and buy some merch, if you're in the Niagara-on-the-Lake, I'd be happy to take care of you. And you get to meet Ella as well. She'll be very friendly to you, and you can give her a treat if you want. One final reminder is that I will be at Rush Day on Saturday, August the 8th at Henderson Brewery in Toronto. I will be spinning music, and we have recreated for that day an exclusive version of the CFNY documentary that is Rush-centric. And both Alan and Liz will be there too. We're going to do a little Q&A on that as well. So that should be fun. We will have the merch on site at Rush Day on the 8th, along with a ton of, Rush's real merch for that. And that is in conjunction with those 4 shows that are going to be going on at Scotiabank Arena. Wow.
That's fantastic. I love the Ivor Hamilton customer service for the merchandise. Come right to his home. There's nobody like Ivor. That is fantastic. And you just reminded me talking about Jack White, which is great. We're going to post that for sure. I've been rehearsing this, and I want to get this Angine de Poitrine intro done. Okay. Hold on tight, everybody. Let's see if this works.
Angine de Poitrine. Sounds like poutine, Scott.
Yeah, I have to try that one more time.
Poutine. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. You got to give yourself some fake name or whatever.
We tried.
You people that have jumped on this, and so many people, I do encourage you to listen to Snakefinger. He was on Ralph Records in the early 80s. Sounds very, very similar. Snakefinger, once again on Ralph Records. There you go.
Okay. Ivor, before we move on to the 2000s, we just have to have a message from one of our sponsors.
Okay.
Keep it cool. If you spot a leak or the temperature rising, don't wait for a boilover. Take your problems to the Radman, Canada's largest chain of cooling system specialists. Problems can occur anywhere in the cooling system, including radiator, thermostat, block, heater core, belts and hoses, water pump and
cooler. You're a Radman? I used to sing that jingle, Radman, keep it cool. You know whose voice that is?
That's Pete Griffin.
Yes.
And I bet you I think Darren Wozelick probably wrote that commercial. I bet he did.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll have to ask him.
It's the sort of thing he's got that sort of sense of humor or whatever, right? That he would do that, right? And I didn't know this till whatever it was about 2 weeks ago that you and him competed for the first job at CFNY, and he ended up getting his job because he said he was number 5 in line to get a job. and everybody else turned it down because the pay was so low, which is keeping in step with the, you know, that
Yeah,
that wonderful format of free form music was a good way to keep the wages down, right?
yeah.
So
Back then it was the wage didn't matter. It was just you wanted to get.
we're there for the rock and roll, we're there for the fun, we're there for the music because we love
Yeah,
CFNY so much.
absolutely.
Now we
All
can
right,
pay the rent.
let's kick off. Yeah, that's right. Kick off with the 2000s this week. All right, the week we're looking at on our milestones this week is July 20th to 26th. And to kick it off, we go back 25 years, 2001 this week. Bleed American. Jimmy Eat World, the album is released and it had that, of course, big hit in it called The Middle.
The Middle was massive. It was a platinum record in this country, and I was at Universal at the time, and they were on Interscope, and that was one of their biggest records of the year. It was absolutely massive. Interesting about this Bleed American record was that it was reissued a few months later for sensitive reasons because of 9/11, and having an album called Bleed American right after 9/11 is like, I think that's maybe a turnoff, and I was working a record from Slayer at the time that was coming out right at 9/11, and it was called God Hates Us All. And I was like, oh my God, I could not think of a worse titled record to come out that week than this Slayer record. But I can see, on Jimmy Eat World, they're going, they change it from Bleed American to Jimmy Eat World. So anyway, they did a lot of dates to support that with Blink 182 and Weezer, and you think about that, a great fit for that band. And they were on Edgefest in 2001 at Molson Amp to support that record too.
It's interesting, the 2011 thing you mentioned, Ivor. We're coming up on the 25th anniversary, but I remember being in radio at the time, and immediately, and this kind of went across the company, it was like, have a look at your playlist, look at all your songs, and take anything about planes or crashes or et cetera, et cetera. And there's a few we missed, and I get a call from an announcer going, I have this song coming up this hour. And I'm like, oh, geez. Okay, good catch. Thank you. So we had to re-examine all of the songs, not just by title, but there were some, lyrics. Sometimes you'd miss it because the title was just, innocuous and it was fine. But in the lyrics somewhere, there was oh, geez.
There's a legendary situation that happened at CFNY, not on 9/11, but when the space shuttle crashed, and JR played Jim Reed right after it happened. And I don't know what got into him. He played the box live on TV. You can watch them die. And I was like, I don't know. I don't recall what the consequences were of that, but it was certainly pretty insensitive at the time. And I do also recall Catherine Wheel, the video for the song Way Down was a bunch of people about to die in a plane crash. So you can imagine that song went to the back burner in a lot of instances.
And you may not know it right away, until you get into the depth of the song.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, again, you see the video and you're going, okay, well then you got to get rid of this. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously a huge amount of sensitivity at that point in time when 9/11 happened. But as you were saying, yes, we got an anniversary coming up, and we'll get into some other things around that. So
yeah, and maybe we'll come up with a list of songs that were temporarily pulled off the airwaves and albums that you had to deal with and stuff like that when we get to that.
Yeah, and I think and music got a lot mellower for quite some time after that. I recall, like as soon as David Letterman was back after that, I remember watching the first show, and it was like so surreal and subtle or whatever. And so,
wasn't it? Yeah, it was an interesting time. It's actually, Ivor and I came up with another milestone that just happened to have an anniversary date. It was 25 years ago that Canada became the first country to legalize medical weed. Now that's July 2001, and then of course if you fast forward to when we fully legalized marijuana to the general public didn't need to be medical marijuana. That was in 2018, October 2018.
I mean, I have more memories of the 2018 than when they did the medical one. But in 2018, it just was like they just did it, right? And all of a sudden, it just seemed like, oh, it's legal now, right? It's totally legal. And then of course, all of the the pop-up shops all over the place. I mean, 2 years ago when I was still living in East York, it was like I think there was like every little strip mall had like at least two pop-up shops for where you could get your pot at or whatever, right?
It was like variety stores
all over the place, right? Even more than Tim Hortons stores or whatever, right? But it was interesting when it first happened was that I had a lot of dealings with my international departments in other parts of the world, in the UK in particular. I talked to them over there and I said, so what's going on with you guys? Is that about to happen? And they're like, it isn't even under discussion. Like it wasn't even close that anything like that was going to happen. But, I mean, my trips to the US and other places, it's all seems to be most places now it's well accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost like in 2018, it was also, it felt almost anticlimactic, I guess, because it was coming and we had started in Canada, the medical weed. So that, and I think there were a number of people that were able to, through their doctors, were like, yeah, if you just got migraines or whatever you're dealing with, sure, try medical marijuana. And so it was already off and running, I guess, 25 years ago.
I mean, one of my first instances of that, I think it was 2005, and I was out in Vancouver on vacation, and I went to see the Raconteurs, Jack White's other band, out in Stanley Park or whatever. There was a show, and you're going through the security, and somebody came in behind me with a big bag of pot, and the security just took it out, put it on the table, looked at it, goes, "Oh, okay," and they said, "Oh, it's medical weed," and they just wrapped it back up and handed it back to them. I was like, "Oh, is that what's going on now?" Right? And before that, you would have been arrested. So
yeah, it was very accepted by that time. You're right. And, you'll go back to, when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s. I back then, you just thought it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But here we are. Yeah. Okay. And another milestone. Oh, here's a little clip to kind of set it up. If I can find it here. Hang on.
Scott's had technical difficulties this week.
Yes, it's been one of those days. Yeah. Here we are.
Just how high will it go? Today, the Canadian dollar closed above $1.06 US, the highest the loonies reached in 3.5 years. A major reason for that, the debt crisis in the United States.
There you go. This is 2011, July 2011, the Canadian dollar worth more than the American dollar. This has only happened a few times in our lifetime, Ivor, but it's a great thing when it happens.
Oh my God. I distinctly remember watching breakfast television, City TV, and if you remember one of the hosts there, Kevin Frankish. And I remember.
Oh yeah. Kevin's great. Yeah.
We've hit $1.10 on the dollar. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Now, if we were a little smarter, maybe we would do it today. And if it ever happens again, I would do it. I know a couple of people who bought property in the US and people who invested right away.
Right.
It was like, oh, I am going to go and buy $20,000 worth of US currency. And, look how much money that is made for them now.
Right.
Never thought of it at the time because it just seems like, it just seems so long ago now. It's like, it's just not possible. Right. And I cross the border all the time. And, right now it's about, 143 or whatever, to buy anything, so most of the time it's just not worth it. It isn't like and the big changes in the US is there are not deals like there used to be there. Most things down there are the same price in Canadian dollar or same price in US dollars as they are in Canada. And my buddy who lives in Lewiston, he is loving the fact that he's inches from the Canadian border because anything he buys over here, it's 40% off to start with. So he's buying stuff here left, right, and center.
Bingo. Yeah, for someone coming up from Buffalo, it's a pretty good pretty good time. The first time I remember in our lifetime, Ivor, was somewhere in the, I think, early 70s or something. I think when our dollar was on par or just above the American dollar.
Yeah.
But long time ago.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate part was, when we were kids, it used to be my perception was that it was like, well, it's just the same as us, and that'll be it, or maybe there's like 5 or 10 cents difference, and we've just had to just put up with this for so long where there's such a discrepancy now. So
Yeah.
it just, they're going, okay, the average price of a new vehicle in the United States is now $50,000. Well, in Canada now it's $60,000, right? So
I know.
crazy.
I know. All right. Let's go to the 1990s now. Okay, milestones from the week of July 20th to 26th, and we're going to start off with, this is the Canadian, actually North American premiere of Trainspotting. Goes back 30 years, July 26, 1996. Trainspotting opens in theaters. Of course, it was out in the UK earlier in the year. I think it was March or actually February.
Mm.
And Trainspotting for you, Ivor, favorite?
Huge movie for me. I love the movie, and I love the soundtrack. To me, I think between that and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels are sort of my two favorite, two of my top films of the 90s that relate to music, because they both had really, really great soundtracks with them. So, I mean, I look at movies that I love, but I also really love movies that if they've got killer soundtracks, then that's even better.
Absolutely. So many favorite scenes from the film. The opening is for a lot of people just the way that opens, and he's running, and that whole dialogue that goes with it. But one of my favorite scenes is, you remember the guy Spud, the character Spud?
Yeah.
And he's going for the job interview, and he's trying to figure out somewhere between he kind of wants the job but doesn't want the job. He has to kind of run, and his friend is looking for ways to help him out, and then he gives him some crystal meth, some speed, man. And so in the interview, he's talking a mile a minute. The Spud job interview. Here's a clip.
Do you see yourself as having any weaknesses?
Oh yes, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, actually. Yes, I am. See, for me, it's got to be the best, or there's nothing at all. Things get a bit dodgy. I just cannot be bothered. But hey, I get good vibes about this interview thing today, though, man. Seems to me like it's going pretty well, eh?
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We'll let you know.
The pleasure was mine, man.
Spud had done well. I was proud of him. He fucked up good and proper. You had to hand it to Spud.
You had to hand it to Spud.
Is that Begsby who's saying that? He fucked up or whatever? It's probably Begsby.
I can't remember.
I love Begsby, the character in that movie.
Yeah.
And the toilet scene when it is like,
oh my God,
putting somebody down the
in
toilet,
Scotland,
the worst in Scotland, and I'm like, okay, well, the Pink that closed down in Buffalo recently, it's like, yeah, your toilet's about as good as the one that's in Trainspotting. That's what I equated it to, and that's why I was going. My buddy goes, hey, we're going to the Pink, and I'm like, you might be going to the Pink. I'm not going to the Pink. Then in later years, the last couple of years, they cleaned it up. I'm like, and he's like, I'm really disappointed. They actually put a seat on the toilet in this place. Anyway, so.
Oh, I love that in the interview. It's like, is there anything about you that's, you need to work on, or one of your negatives or something? And it's like, well, I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
I
love it.
Great film.
All right. Going back to the early 90s now. So 35 years ago, July 23rd, the track A Roller Skating Jam named Saturdays by De La Soul is released. Great track. Of course, it's 91, so there's a lot of sampling going on. This song is another example of it.
Got the sampling before the legislation came in, right? So they were and De La Soul's records were not available on the streaming services up until about 2 years ago. Like they just couldn't get over the hump to get all that stuff cleared. So anyway, great record. I was a little more partial to the album before, but I mean, The Source has it down as one of their best records of 1998, and Rolling Stone has it at like number 228 of their top 500 records of all time. So, I'm probably wrong on that because they absolutely love it, and they were you know, I think they were a great band for that time frame and still hold up very well today.
Yeah, very true. Also, I Am Here by Grapes of Wrath single is released. That ended up 30 on CFNY's top 91 of 1991.
And Grapes of Wrath are doing an acoustic tour, acoustic and electric. It's sort of split between shows that are coming up. They're playing in Quebec City on the 1st of August. They're playing in Hamilton at the Supercrawl on between September 11th and 13th. And you can check your listings for the rest of the dates all over the province to see whether you got a show with a full band or the acoustic duo. So still out there.
Excellent. Okay. Also, same week, 1991, 35 years ago, the James album. Now, this is by James, so this is a little confusing because this album was a North America album only. It's basically made up of the Gold Mother album that was out the year before, which was also reissued in the UK because of some singles and remixes. Anyway,
Really,
the James album.
Really confusing.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
And I worked with them too. I was doing promo with those guys, and I think because we were Polygram, we put out the UK version and then had to come with that US version, and very, very.
Oh, so you ended up doing both in Canada?
Oh, I think so, or some iteration of it.
I think so. I think you're right. I think that did happen here.
Yeah.
And confusion because, they had, and I think it was, one of the things I believe that Sit Down was not originally, when it first came out, was not a big hit. So it was re-released and then it was a big hit. And then they decided to, and it was out after Gold Mother. So then they had to re-release the single and then they stuck it on a reissue of Gold Mother, then also on the James album for North America. Very confusing.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you're working in the record company.
Oh my God. It's like, and we spent so much money on James. It was a gigantic priority for those were the days when, we'd be taking out oh, let's do a TV campaign, full page newspaper ads. And those were, in those days, they were not cheap in those days. So we did a lot of because in those days the internet was not up and running or whatever at the time, or if it was very sporadic and not meaningful, is that you had to spend a ton of money, especially if a band was coming to town and you wanted to get people out. Because we had bands that come to town and it was like, great, there's us and the bar staff and 5 people from independent retail there and nobody else, right? Because you couldn't spread the word of mouth the way you can today. So
true. So true. Now, there's a documentary coming out, and I think in the documentary there's a scene or a clip where they talk about the band being difficult, self-admitting that they're difficult to deal with because they went through a lot of different things.
I found that Tim Booth was difficult. I didn't find that the rest of the band was difficult, but I found that Tim was quite eccentric, and he was just, it was one of those things you didn't know what you were gonna get. I mean, one thing that I, learned is that they turned down a U.S. tour with the Smiths. They didn't want to do it, and I was like, oh my God, you talk about shoot yourself in the foot, right?
Right.
To not do something like that,
And they talk about it in the documentary, and this is just from the trailer. So I'll play a clip of this is an edited down version of the trailer. And then we'll talk about the documentary.
We're kind of an art band who occasionally have pop songs.
Please say hello to James.
The strength of the band is improvisatory chaos.
We're a nightmare to work with.
We don't have a set list. We maybe all sound crazy, so that's fine.
We quite like it when a song falls apart.
Part of me thinks we could have been the biggest band on the planet if we'd made different turns in our career.
The ethos of being part of the same unit was great until the unit decided to join a cult.
We were like monks in a monastery.
I was doing loads of meditating, a 7-hour meditate through the night.
The longer you were in it, the more you had to give up.
The Smiths offered us a US tour. We turned it down because I was up for initiation.
Outrageous.
They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Those who feel the breath of sadness.
Working in James became traumatic.
It sounds great and looks great. The documentary is called Getting Away with It. They are doing a one night only in theaters in the UK. If you happen to be over in the UK, August 17th. They are also doing at the host venue, which is in Manchester. They're doing a live acoustic set that's going to be screened at all the other theaters in the UK. And it's they're not saying anything just yet, but it's very likely going to be on one of the streaming services probably a few months later. So we should get to see it, I'm going to guess, in the fall or maybe in 2027.
I will reach out to, I do have a very good connection in specialty programming at Cineplex. And they, you know, they do take those chances on these films occasionally. So I'll reach out and see if there's anything cooking with Cineplex, to see if there's anything there. But who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it looks really good though. So, and they've definitely got a story.
Yeah, they're an interesting band. They're a very interesting band. You know, I know firsthand. So,
yes. I always love James. Okay, also, we're still in the early 90s, 35 years ago. Steel Pulse and Special Beat play Kingswood. Ivor, were you there? Or
I was not. And you know what? But I will tell you that I never really paid attention to Special Beat. I never even put two and two together. Going, it's members of the Specials and members of the English Beat in one band together, and I never saw them play ever.
Yeah, me either.
You know, and you got Ranking Roger, Neville Staples, Linville Golding, John Bradbury, Horace Painter. Basically, well, four members of the Specials with Ranking Roger. Pretty good band, right? You get best of the Specials and best of the English Beat play on a bill with Steel Pulse. And I like Steel Pulse. We played them, you know, a good deal at CFNY in the early days. So
hey, there was only 2,000 people at that Kingswood show, so not many people were there, unfortunately.
The worst one I ever saw at Kingswood where nobody was there was Iggy Pop. And Iggy was there, and he had some sponsorship, a U.S. sponsorship for a chewing tobacco company. And I'm like, oh man, like I never even heard of the brand. And I don't think there was 1,000 people there. Maybe not even, like maybe 500 people there. It was such a drag at the time.
And maybe even for the super fans, maybe Kingswood's not the place you want to see Iggy Pop. You want to see him in a smaller club, right?
You'd see Danforth Music Hall or you know,
RPM or something.
RPM or History or something like that. But you don't want to go see Iggy. You know, I'm not going to go up there and, you know, ride the Ferris wheel and go see Iggy Pop. It's not
no
the time. So.
Doesn't sound right. Speaking of RPM, this particular band played RPM, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. So let's go to one of the band members to get this pronunciation correct.
Get it.
Miss Blixer Bargeld. I am here to represent my band Einstürzende Neubauten. That's Einstürzende Neubauten.
Oh, thank you for the education, Mr. Turner.
I couldn't say that again if I tried. So you just say Neubauten. Let's go see Neubauten.
Yeah, you just say Neubauten, right? I don't know. I was reading something Alan Cross talking about his when he came to CFNY, and he goes, well, I had an okay understanding. It was a good deal of the music on CFNY because you know, one of the stations out in Winnipeg, they were playing Depeche Mode and Simple Minds, and I'm like, yeah, what about Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds? What about Neubauten? What about Bauhaus? Like, how much do you know about those bands, Alan?
Yeah.
And then he was like, no, I don't know anything about those bands. How many Fall albums are in your record collection, Alan?
You know what? It's funny you say that. And Alan's anniversary of when he first started at CFNY is coming up, and we're going to actually have him on the show this fall. And I remember all of us giving him a little bit of a hard time because we're all at Toronto people from CFNY, and Alan's hired and he's from Winnipeg. And it was like, I think we all kind of gave him a little bit of the business.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I'd say it's even the same with Burns at the time too, right? He had no idea on a lot of the music or whatever. But at the same time, you know, he was putting in all these, like, you know, we'd have come up with these specialty weekends, and we'd have to go and, you know, dig up these records from the 50s and all this kind of stuff. And so it was a bit of a two-way learning curve at the time when Burns came in, right?
Yeah.
Because he was. Even though I was the import music director, when Burns came in, he was actually made assistant PD and music director, right? So
Yeah.
Although I still wielded a pretty big stick on the music, right? Because
Yes,
but he
you
was
did.
good. He listened. He listened. That was the great thing. If he were really passionate, he'd go, "Oh, okay, I get it," or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and him and Alan, they really did spend their time to get to know the music.
Yeah,
and then some, right? So
absolutely, they both
credit
did.
to both of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, did you ever see? And obviously, Neubauten were a huge influence on like Depeche Mode and that. And did you ever see them live?
I did not.
No.
It was.
I
One
would have
that
liked to have
did-
seen them live. Yeah.
That is one that I did not get to see, unfortunately. And by that time, when the show that we're talking about was into the 90s, and that was when I was in my record company days. And so I got, once I got into the record company thing, we had so many shows that I had to see all the time. It wasn't like, oh, it's just CFNY things. I had to go see everything that we had in town. So, I'd have a night and well, I got Nana Muscuri here tonight, and I got Boys to Men tomorrow night, and whoever else, right? It's Kentucky Headhunters, and so it was a lot of different things that I was out seeing all the time. So
yeah, for sure. All right, birthdays. Shall we do that?
Let's do it.
We got a couple of big ones this time around. Look at this. A milestone, 85 years old for George Clinton. George Clinton turning 85. Good for you, man.
He's still the atomic dog, man. That's
yes.
Right.
For sure. Andrew McKay of Roxy Music. He was the guy that played saxophone and mostly noted for his saxophone playing.
We added editions of you to our playlist this week because that's got a killer sax solo in it. So
excellent. Yes. Happy birthday, Andrew McKay, turning 80. We were just talking about the special beat. Linville Golding turning 75. He was in the specials, and then Fun Boy 3 and also the special beat.
And he had a little band called After Tonight. He also played with Pauline Black. So he's now 75. He lives in Washington, D.C. these days.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Very cool. Paul Cook of the Sex Pistols and also the Professionals later on turned 70. Look at that. Wow.
Yes, sir. And the 2026 version of the Pistols with Frank Turner. It's Cook and Jones, Matlock, and Frank Turner playing at History on 21st of September. I got my tickets rescheduled from that first time round. So.
That's right. Yeah, rescheduled. Remember. Also, Martin Gore of Depeche Mode turning 65.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Well, okay. Also, we want to recognize some people that we lost. This is going back a few years, but it was 15 years ago that Amy Winehouse passed away, and that was a big shock for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a big shock, but she was a troubled individual, right? There was a lot of trouble going on for a long time. I count my lucky stars that I got to see her play twice.
Nice.
So, including he played at the Mod Club, did a show there, a sold out show there, and then there was a showcase at the little restaurant over on I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but anyway, she did a little showcase, and we saw her play there too. So
nice.
Anyway, it was pretty special, and of course, she's on that. They got that cover on the new Stones record as well.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, we said Glastonbury last week. They did another mistake. We only speculated that Stones and Amy played together at Glastonbury, but it was not. It was the 2007. They were on the same bill at Isle of Wight. So that's where Mick had said to Amy, get on stage and do a great performance. So,
yeah. And it's been a year since Ozzy.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty sudden, obviously, after that final show that was on July the 5th in the hometown of Birmingham. And I subscribed to that. I kicked myself for not going over. I probably, there was some discussion about doing it. I never did, but I did watch that entire tribute at the end, and all the love that was shown to Ozzy by so many bands and the tributes and things. So, first thing I did when Ozzy passed away was I pulled the car over. I was in Oakville, and I went to PVC and bought myself a Sabbath bootleg and went home and listened to Black Sabbath nonstop for a day or so.
Yeah. And you know what? Stay tuned, because when we get to the 70s, we're going to be talking about an iconic album turning 55 years old this week, Master of Reality, Black Sabbath. And look at Ivor, if you're watching on YouTube, anybody, Ivor's got his Black Sabbath t-shirt on.
Yes, sir.
There you are. That is such a great logo. We'll talk more about that album and Black Sabbath coming up. And it just, Scott's wearing, of course, a cycling T-shirt because the Tour de France is on right now.
There you go.
All right. So I think, is that finished? So we'll do the 80s now.
Yeah.
The
let's go to
80s.
The 80s. Here we go.
The 80s. Let me find my 80s intro here. Hang on. Mr. Technical this week. Eh?
Living in the 80s.
80s. Yeah.
Killing joke.
All right, Scott and Ivor, music milestones, the week of July 20th to 26th, and we're going to cover the 80s right now. So July 21st, 1986, 40 years ago, the Smiths released the single Panic, and I had a beautiful clip to play of me talking to Morrissey about the song, but we're going to play that next week because Scott has technical issues this week. So.
Well, Ivor has his in print, so he can talk a little bit about that. So history has it that there was a story up on the BBC announcing the Chernobyl disaster. And so both Morrissey and Marr were listening to BBC Radio 1 when the Chernobyl disaster comes out. And so that is said. And straight afterwards, what does the DJ go to? I'm Your Man by Wham. And so you got Morrissey and Marr going, what the fuck? I mean, there is a time and place when you sort of, we're joking a little bit about, Deep Purple Smoke on the Water. And I'd sent you yesterday, Scott, let's put this video up for Sisters of Mercy, Black Planet. Well, there are times when songs like that make sense. So, so they go, what the fuck has this got to do with people's lives? And so that's kind of where the inspiration came to write that. And and of course, because of the DJ who did that, that's where also we go, well, you should hang that DJ for playing that song. So
100%. Well, and we're coming up on the anniversary when the Smiths played Kingswood the second time. That's where I interviewed Morrissey, and you'll hear in the clip, because I think, that particular incident you talk about was sort of the tipping point, but Morrissey has always been a guy who, listened to the radio, and he used to write reviews. He wrote reviews for a few magazines, or would write into the music magazines. So he's always kind of tuned into what was, popular and what was being played. And he had a particular, grudge, as the band did, about, BBC and Radio 1. And they
still does.
Right, exactly. And he rarely getting any, like, we get some evening play, and certainly John Peel was a big supporter, but they weren't getting any daytime play. And that really annoyed Morrissey. And that's part of the song Panic. And as you said, the music they play says nothing to me about my life.
Right.
Yeah. And hang the DJ. And so all of that, was about, basically BBC, which is so powerful in the UK and that. But anyway, you'll hear that clip and him talking about that. Morrissey, we'll play that as part of the Smiths anniversary at Kingswood on next week's show.
Cool. All right.
Okay. Also, another concert on the 26th of July, 40 years ago, the Cramps and Screaming Blue Messiahs at the concert hall. Was Screaming Blue Messiahs the guys that did I Want to Be a Flintstone?
They sure were. Bill Carter and company. There was also this other great song they had called Wild Blue Yonder. So we played those songs. The magic about that, though, was the extended version, which is now, of course, no longer available. But the extended mix of I Want to Be a Flintstone, that had the whole, Barney and Fred discussing, and Mr. Grimly Fiendish or whatever it was in that song, really kind of made it. Like the album version, the 3-minute version, it's pretty good, but that extended mix really stood out. But for some reason, it came and went pretty quickly. And I think that the Screaming Blue Messiahs, and Bill Carter was the guy who led the band, was pretty intense. They kind of came and went pretty quick, but at the time they were a great band, really, really good. So
cool. Okay. Also, July 86, 40 years ago, the Manor recording sessions for the album Electric by The Cult. And Ivor, you talked about this on the CFNY documentary, and maybe just kind of retell that story and the connection with Chris Shepherd.
I mean, it was when they were doing these Manor sessions, I mean, it was going well, but it was.
And just to stop you for a second, I would just to clarify for people that don't understand what the Manor was. This was a house where they were recording the album, right?
Yes,
it was called The Manor.
The Manor,
right.
the recording studios.
Okay.
It was a different producer, but it was going to be, it felt kind of like Love Part 2, and it was okay. And there are a few songs that are out there on various cult compilations. I've got a 10 CD cult singles collection on all these discs. Has got like it's sprinkled with tracks from the Manor, but on the same EPs there's tracks with Rick Rubin, and you just listen to them back to back, and you go, it's like night and day. It really
is.
And
the Rick Rubin's it's so tight. That's my sort of takeaway is that it's how tight the songs are versus the Manor versions seem kind of loosey jamish.
I'm not saying there's so much loosey. I just think they've got edge to them, and I think that's what Rubin added to it. Is it really gave them a harder, more less effects. It's basically bare bones rock and roll, and that's what Rubin liked to do. But it was Chris Shepherd who said because he became very tight with Ian and said you guys need to work with Rick Rubin. And then this not too long ago, I listened to that Raconteurs podcast, the one that's hosted by the fella from Spandau Ballet and the one other gentleman. And they had Billy from the Cult on, and he mentioned Shep's name in that podcast as being the one. So that's kind of like, if people are speculating on that, he confirmed it. Billy Duffy confirmed it. So
yeah, they did eventually release those sessions, the Manor sessions, on CD, and I remember I have a copy still here. And Ivor, maybe you put that in the playlist this week.
I did.
A song from there?
Okay. I did. It's the Manor ones are harder to find. I'm not even sure if I can find it online, but we'll do our best. So,
okay, cool. Cool track that reminds me of CFNY is back in '81, July 22nd, the release of the single "I Hang On to My Vertigo." Rupert Hine. Remember hearing that a lot on CFNY.
It was a big. I think it was
great
like
track.
David Marston favorite. The album was called Immunity, and I mean he was super prolific. If you want to go down a rabbit hole and dig into his history and all the records that he produced, the bands that he produced, it's quite extensive. And so he produced Saga, Krista Berg, Howard Jones, The Fix, Bob Geldof. He did the GoldenEye soundtrack. He also did some work with Apple with the MIDI synthesizer, and he did 2 records for Rush. He did Roll the Bones and Presto. He produced those records.
Wow.
Which is huge. Rush showing that kind of support for, again, that sort of gives you that connection to CFNY that people go, Rush, CFNY didn't play a lot of Rush. And it's like, I don't know about that. But
it's a good impression, Ivor.
Well, I don't know if that's my, me doing the standard thing, but sometimes I see that stuff and it drives me around the bend, which of course, with that Joy Division thing that I posted last week on, when people go, I don't remember hearing, Shadow play on CFNY. I don't think they ever did that. It's like, trust me, people. I was there. I know. Anyway, so I don't mean to be demeaning. And
that's okay. No.
Apologize.
Here's another chance for you. Here's another segue. Here's another chance for you to do the CFNY listener. Because Ozzy Osbourne, this is July 23rd, 1981. Ozzy Osbourne plays Center in the Square in Kitchener, presented by
CFNY. And Scott, I believe you have the ad for that show.
Yes, I will post that on our socials. Yes.
I don't remember hearing Ozzy on CFNY. Well, in the early days, folks, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, the new wave of British heavy metal, most of those bands. And as I mentioned, for the 150th time, a lot of Motorhead people.
CFNY didn't play Motorhead.
Yes, they fucking did.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's cool. You didn't see that show, did you, by any chance?
I did go up there. Yes.
Did you?
I did. I went and saw that date, and there was also a special There was a CBS did a bus trip to Buffalo. It was Ozzy and Motorhead on a double bill at Shays in Buffalo.
Wow.
And the wonderful thing about that experience was, first of all, I got to meet Lemmy, and I gave Lemmy a CFNY pin that he put on his jean jacket, and it was the little one that used to have the heart. But the second thing that was cool was that Ozzy came on the Canadian bus, because it was all a bunch of people from radio and retail at the time. But Ozzy came on the bus and brought Randy Rhoads on the bus with him. And you know, Randy Rhoads ended up being such an iconic guitarist, and he couldn't say enough good things about Randy Rhoads when he came on the bus. And he's like, I even think he's better than Tony Iommi. I think he's one of the greatest guitarists ever. And he did end up being one of the greatest guitarists in his short life too. So
yeah,
good on Ozzy for that.
Right. And so Ozzy this did a sort of his launch solo tour.
Yeah. It was the Blizzard of Oz record.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I you know, in fairness to the naysayers out there, we didn't play Ozzy for that long. I think we played the first album and then the second, and I think the second album ended up being on our worst of list too. And then we just kind of like said, okay, enough of that, and move on and let Ozzy live on with Crazy Train and hockey rinks and sport rinks around the world as it has done. But I mean, the thing is, today Ozzy and Sabbath are bigger than they've probably ever been, in the legacy there. When I went to Birmingham in 2019 with Darren Wozelick, former CFNY promotions director. We went to the Black Sabbath exhibition. Blew me away that anybody you talk to in Birmingham, England, no matter what the age group and whatever your lifestyle is, people knew Black Sabbath in there. And not only did they know about the band, they really knew the repertoire too. You'd ask them about Black Sabbath songs. You could ask a 20-year-old waitress, yep, I love Children of the Grave, and I like Into the Void, and I like Paranoid. Yeah. Stuff. It was like fantastic, you people. And they've got the Black Sabbath bridge over in Birmingham as well. So great to visit there.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Okay, also Kraftwerk. This is the same week, actually, just the day after the Ozzy show up in Kitchener Center in the Square. Kraftwerk playing the concert hall for I believe this is their second time in Toronto, because they hadn't played, and according to what I could find, the first time was Massey Hall 75.
Massey. Yeah.
And this was the second time. So big gap before them playing again. This is the Computer World album tour.
I remember, I didn't go to that show, but I do recall that Eddie Valaket was super excited about the Kraftwerk. That was to him one of his favorites, and I know he went out to that show. I didn't get to see them. I didn't get to see Kraftwerk until much later, probably about 10, 12 years ago, and I've seen them twice now. And I just, with today's technology or recent technology, one of the best live presentations you'll see out there. They're phenomenal live.
Okay. 1981, July, the Party Mix album from B-52s is released. This is basically a remix album of some of their big tracks.
Yeah, they took three songs from the debut album, 3 songs from the Wild Planet record, and made it a continuous mix on both sides. So you got like about 15 to 20 minutes on each side. Scott, if you're a DJ, if you're a club DJ, you want to have this in your collection.
Absolutely. Okay, time to do the 70s, Ivor.
Let them in, Scott.
Yep. That's cool, and we're going to be talking about Black Sabbath again in a second here. First of all, July 23rd, 1976, so 50 years ago, release of the single Let 'Em In from The Wings.
Yeah.
From The Wings, or just Wings?
I think it's Wings.
Just Scott. Wings, yes. Get it right, Scott. Wings.
I
don't know. Why are we talking about this, Ivor? Because it's kind of you like this song? It's a little bit
it's a matter of fact, I don't like the song very much, right? Because it got to a point. I mean, if I look at whenever it was 73 or 74, where Band on the Run came out, one of my most played records. Loved it, like the earlier ones.
Yes.
But by this point in Wings lifespan, I was kind of like, I didn't really like the orchestration. That it became kind of sappy to me.
Yes.
And I just like going, okay, this is not what I signed up for at that point with Wings. But I look back on it now, and I, if I listen to it once or twice a year, that's okay. I don't hate it, like, but it's not, to me, the greatest.
Well, and you know what it is? I think that line sticks in my head, someone knocking at the door. And it's like, you can't get that sort of line
Well, I
out
like
of your head.
the orchestration, and then, whatever, Uncle Ernie, Auntie Phil or whatever. And I was like, okay, so it's a, British sitcom or something, so.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Not terrible, but again, it's not in the heavy rotation. It is on our playlist this week, so you make your minds up, folks.
Okay, so 50 years ago this week, a song called "Don't Fear the Reaper" by Blue Oyster Cult is released.
Get the cowbell ready, Scott.
Yeah, get the cowbell ready. I wonder if the band, when Saturday Night Live did that skit, and it's almost like that skit became bigger than the song. Certainly maybe for a newer generation, right?
Well, it's like all of a sudden something happens in a film and or a TV show. It's kind of like when Bohemian Rhapsody in Wayne's World. It changed you, like you will forever be all you'll think of is like, well, it's time for a little Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever, a little Grey Poupon or whatever it is, right? And so you remember, right? And now I got and I hear I Don't Feel the Reaper. I got to think of the cowbell coming in, right? And so the song's kind of ruined from what it's originally sort of a cool rock song to a Saturday Night Live song, but it's okay. It's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a parody of itself. Anyway, here's a clip, one of the clips from that classic scene.
Hey, wait! That it doesn't work for me. I could have used a little more cowbell. So I gotta have more cowbell.
There you go, right?
Yeah. What is it later on? I think he says, I'm having a, what's the line? I forget. Something about having a dream, something about, again, more cowbell.
Right, right.
Okay.
Great, good stuff.
That'll come back to me. Okay. So
Christ. Enough of the comedy, Scott. Like,
I know.
We're worried about we're going to get busted for songs, but every week you've got about 5 TV shows that we pull stuff from, right? So maybe those guys are going to start coming down on us. So,
all right. So here's one that I think most people will not know. So July 23rd, 1976.
Your music education from
music education, everybody. Listen carefully, and you'll learn a couple things here from Scott and Ivor. There's a song called I Want More by a German band called Can. Or do you say Con or Can?
Can,
yes.
Can, as Susie Quattro would say. Right.
So what's interesting about this song, and we are going to play a clip of this song for you in a second here, is Johnny Marr of the Smiths, when he was coming up with the riff and the music for a certain How Soon Is Now by the Smiths, he references a couple of different songs, and depending on the interview, sometimes he talks about this.
Because there was something else that I saw referenced, and I went and listened to it, and I can't recall what it was off the top of my head. Was like, that does not sound anything like what he's talking about.
I know. Well, so one of the ones is a track by Disco Stomp, I think it's called, by Bohannon, is one of the tracks he talks about.
I think that's the one I listened to.
Yeah, that he's inspired by that. And the other song he talks about is I Want More by Can. That there's this guitar playing that uses a tremolo effect, which is kind of a pulsing effect on the amplifier. And so we kind of did a version of that. Anyway, here is a clip from that song by Can that inspired, or at least he says inspired, How Soon Is Now.
We'll play it and then we'll talk a little bit about, because I got something I want to say about that, right?
Okay, yeah. Actually, let me play that from the beginning. Yeah, so you can hear that kind of tremolo, kind of guitar sound.
It's really it's kind of like the almost it's a technical aspect of the song that he's taken to put into How Soon Is Now. It's kind of like, can I replicate this
Right.
in, but also manipulate it or whatever, right? It's just kind of like, because that is a, Can were a very, very unique band. And, that I Want More, that was actually their only semi-hit. I think it hit the 50s or the 60s in the UK, but it got them on top of the pops. It's the only time they were ever on top of the pops. And I wonder if
that's what he probably
saw it and thought, oh, that's where it is. I could be completely wrong, but I'm only speculating on that. Interestingly enough, too, that I Want More song was covered in years later by Blamage, and Roland Kirk from Cabaret Voltaire also covered it at one point too. But
I did not know that. That's very cool.
There you go. There's some, I mean, the thing is with Can, they're much bigger band in Europe than they were here. CFNY did not play a lot of Can. There was a little bit here. We did play Holger Zuke records though. Remember we played a song called Cool in the Pool. And there was the Twilight World EP that had Jaw Wobble on it that was kind of like very much in the tradition of Joy Division, and we played that quite a bit. But overall with Can, I think it was, you would have had to go back to the All Night Andre, David Pritchard early years to sort of get, Can on the air, and that would have been sporadically.
Right, yeah. It's actually a pretty cool track. Yeah.
It is, and I recommend anybody who's like curious and want to check out Can. There's a hits package, just a single disc CD or a single vinyl. It's definitely worth having in your collection. I take it out with me when I go out and DJ occasionally, and don't spin it that often, but there's always room for it under the right circumstances, and obviously you can just check it out on the streaming as well. So
yeah, and Ivor will put that on the playlist. Excellent.
It is on the playlist, sir.
Okay, so we talked about it. Black Sabbath, we're coming up on the 55th anniversary of the Master of Reality album from Black Sabbath. There is some people say the album wasn't released till August 6th, but there's also a date of July 21st.
Yeah, so this is one of the things, and you and I talk about this because we off the air, you and I talk a lot about AI stuff, and sometimes, and I realized this is a conversation we had with Derek from our book company about AI stuff, and I'd use some AI stuff to submit some stuff in the book, and he called it out right away, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to use AI as little as possible as I can, and so I went on, actually did in this instance for this record, and I questioned AI, because you can go in and go, that's not correct. I don't think that's right. So if you look up on Wikipedia or whatever it is, and it'll say whatever
I think Wikipedia says August 6th
or whatever, and it's the July. And so what I have now ascertained on this is that the date on the 21st of July was the correct release date in both the UK or Europe and North America. But what put an asterisk on that for North America? They had production delays, and nobody said anything about it. So it was scheduled to come out on the 21st, but it did not come out until the 6th of August because there was delays. And so for some reason, history has it that it's like, oh, this is the date on the 21st, but it was delayed, right? And shit happens, right? So they time stamped it. Rhino Records goes, oh no, it was the 21st, but it actually came out on the 6th in North America 55 years ago, whatever, who cares, right? So,
well, anyway, to talk about the album and the music, and I kind of discovered Black Sabbath a little late, and this was an album. I think I told you that story of being up in Killbear,
oh yes,
with a bunch of friends, and we only had like 6 different 8 tracks, and it went from from John Denver to Jim Croce
or something,
but we had Black Sabbath Master of Reality on 8-track that we played over and over again, and that just from the first, that cough of Sweet Leaf that I think starts the album off is always in my mind. Every time I think of Master of Reality, I think of Sweet Leaf, and
I believe that's actually Tony Iommi's cough.
Really?
It's actually, yeah, I believe it's him coughing, and apparently the sweet leaf, the name was derived from an obscure Irish cigarette or something that was called sweet leaf or whatever. And it's like, well,
Okay.
we get the time, we really can't call it, a brand of dope or whatever. So we're going to call it sweet leaf or whatever. So that by that point they were smoking quite a bit of pot at the time. The difference between this record and the first two Black Sabbath records was time, and it was the first instance. Like, that first Black Sabbath record was recorded in a day, and the second record,
wow,
they didn't have a lot of time to do it because they were like, oh, that first record was so successful. They were off on, I mean, they toured relentlessly at that point. But this third record was the first one where they actually go, we can sit down in the studio and we can spend the time to work these songs out the way that they should be worked out. And I think that made a huge difference in the sound on that record. They also sort of tuned their guitars down and the instrumentation down a little bit. It sort of gave it, as it's been pointed out, is that they call it sludge rock for some reason. It's like, this is now listed as the greatest sludge rock record of all time. But I was like, okay, what the fuck is sludge rock?
I've never heard that before.
But listen, when I went to that Sabbath exhibition, they had up on the wall was a giant sort of, it's not a pie chart, but just a chart on heavy metal and the start, because of course Sabbath being technically ground zero for heavy metal. You can say maybe there's a couple of others like Iron Butterfly and Blue Cheer or whatever, but they said that the outreach from the original phrase of heavy metal went to about 1,800 other sort of definitions. So, well, if it's sludge rock in there, great. So, but there was this whole thing that the outreach of how heavy metal had all splintered off.
Right.
So, the interesting thing also too is that in later years, that Nirvana, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins all sort of
reference that record.
Totally were influenced by that record and some of their sounds. And they talk about Sabbath being heavy metal and then punk coming later. You sit there and listen to a song like Paranoid and going, if Paranoid was released at the same time as Smells Like Teen Spirit, it could have been a very big record again, if they were born, if they were born later in life, so, and when I was working under the table, Smells Like Teen Spirit to radio stations, because it was not on Polygram, it was on Universal, and that was before we merged. But I didn't have those records, and I was out telling radio stations, I said, look, to me, this record is Smells Like Teen Spirit is as big as Paranoid. It will be as big as Paranoid ever will. And of course, it ended up being even bigger than Paranoid ever was. But anyway, I think it was a record I played a million times. I think as a young man or as a boy, I was in high school at the time and the early years of high school or whatever. And, I absolutely loved Black Sabbath. And, in later years, I was very fortunate enough to work directly with them and hear the stories and, hear Sharon Osbourne yelling at people. That was a badge of courage too, a badge of honor to get yelled at by Sharon Osbourne. She didn't yell at me, but I heard her yell at lots of other people to get shit done. Sharon got stuff done, man. So
full circle for you. That's a really cool story.
Yeah,
absolutely. And today, and this is the most recent update from Rolling Stone magazine. They did, I think, in 2020 or 2021. The album Master of Reality, Black Sabbath, sits at 234 on Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time. There you go.
You know what I would like to do, Scott? Every week afterwards, we talk about what we're going to do for our little image that we promote our show. Because I want to see if I can get our guy Simon to redo this logo, the music milestones in the Black Sabbath style.
That's a great idea.
We'll see what we can make.
I just, what's funny, we don't talk about artwork and stuff like that very often, but that cover and that purple, the black and purple look, and on a t-shirt, it's just such a cool look.
Yes.
Right? It was just I don't know, it's just stood out at the time.
Well, I was also just taking a look back at it, and the original version, it was embossed, so the logo stood out, and it was an envelope format. So I'm like, oh, okay, so there's some versions for me to try and go and find and collect. So
right, of course. Oh yeah, and you bought just very quickly. You bought some. What did Ivor buy this week?
So I didn't buy any records this week, but there's this book that's just out. It is called Blow by Blow, the Jeff Beck story, and it's really good. Brad Tolinsky, Chris Gill, these guys have done some other amazing books out, and
Ivor has the cover up if you're on YouTube. By the way, he looks like a young Keith Richards there, doesn't he?
Well, listen, they had the similar. They had the similar shag haircuts, and of course, and Rod Stewart played with the Jeff Beck group, and Ronnie Wood played with the Jeff Beck group in the early days, and of course, the Yardbirds played with Jimmy Page or whatever back then. It was a huge rival to Eric Clapton, but they sort of put their differences aside and ended up playing together. And of course, in later years, they had Johnny Depp playing with out doing shows. And I went to the last Jeff Beck show before he passed away, and who's on the drums, Annika Niles, who of course is now playing with Rush. So an amazing history. I'm looking forward to reading this. This is once again the Jeff Beck story, blow by blow. It is out now. So
yeah, cool. I look forward to hearing a couple of stories out of that book, Ivor, in upcoming episodes. A couple of things just to finish off the 70s, and then we're going to say goodbye. 1971, release of the single "If You Really Love Me," Stevie Wonder, just a great track.
Yep, the last track to feature the Motown backing band, the Funk Brothers, before he kind of went independent, because both him and Marvin Gaye's going, you know what, I've had enough of Berry Gordy and the Funk Brothers, and I need to do my own thing. But he did most of the instrumentation on the track. Did the bass, drums, and piano on that, and number 20 hit in Canada, number 8 in the U.S.
Okay, and same time, July 1971. If you were watching TV at the time, you just might have heard this commercial, seen this commercial, and heard this commercial on your television.
You got some tape, Scott?
I do.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I like to buy the world a coat and keep it company.
Advertising does work, I think, Ivor. With World Cup, with so much Coca-Cola advertising World Cup, I was like, you know what? I feel like a Coca-Cola. I still Coke right now.
Well, I'll tell you the influence of that commercial back in 1971. So at that point, I think I was 11 years old. And when I was, I don't know, was it 10, 11, and 12 or whatever it was, or 9, 10, 11, I can't remember. I was shipped off to summer camp every year. I was shipped off, and that year, both myself, my brother, and my cousin, we were shipped off to Camp Queen Elizabeth up in Muskoka. I think it was on Lake Beausoleil up in Georgian Bay somewhere. And so we're up there for 2 weeks at summer camp, and one guy brought his own record player up there. Brought a record player up there. I'd heard Alice Cooper and T-Rex for the first time. But anyway, and we had a rock festival at summer camp too. They wanted to be cool and let's have a little rock festival. And they had a record player up there, so we had heard a few things. But I remember on Sundays, because it's the Y, it's Young Men Christian Association. We need to have a bit of a religious service. Church service, and like at church, back then you'd sing some hymns or whatever. So they said, well, we need to be a little bit more progressive. Let's sing this New Seekers song, I'd like to teach the world to sing. And there's about 200 kids at this camp, maybe more, and there's everybody singing. And immediately everybody broke into, I'd like to buy the world a Coke. And all the people at the camp are just going, whatever. I remember the guy who was the head of the camp laughing his head off because everybody was singing the Coke commercial. That was the impact it had on us back then.
That's funny. Guys, remember summer camp? I was with the Boys Brigade, and we had a summer camp with the Boys Brigade. It was kind of like the North American version of the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
Out of the UK Boys Brigade. But anyway, that's funny because the New Seekers had a big hit with the song. The actual original song that was all taken from was a song called True Love and Apple Pie. Way back when, but I don't know who it was. But the TV commercial was done by the Hillside Singers. And I guess
Hillside Singers.
Yeah, whatever. And then so the New Seekers, did their version and had a hit with that. But anyway, it was a big campaign, right? Very successful.
I wonder if the Lori Bauer Singers did it here in Canada, right? We're playing with Tommy Hunter, right?
I don't remember in the Turner household. Yeah, my parents or my mother bought there was a couple of New Seekers albums. And,
right.
And they were the Lori Bauer Singers. And these were all people that covered, popular songs of the day, right? So you get these like washed down versions of these songs.
When Mom went over to England for the first time, and it was like 69 or something, and I was like, Mom, please get me the Beatles book or the Beatles book monthly. Can you please get me that? And I can you please get me a Beatles album? I didn't know, right? Just going to England for the first time. Well, I got a Beatles lyric book. That was cool. That it wasn't the Beatles book monthly, but the album I got was like on Music for Pleasure, which was a budget label, and the stars sing the Beatles. Not the same, my friend. Not the same.
Yeah.
Probably 98p at the time, or who knows what, because it was.
I ever got a KTEL special. Yep. I had a few of those. 20 explosive hits.
Oh,
and,
yeah. They weren't
crammed onto an album, and they were cut short, and they were terrible edits.
Yeah. As we used to call them on those KTEL ones, that somebody goes, oh, the strip club versions, right? Because if you went into one of those clubs, it would. Why is that? Why is Stairway to Heaven only a minute and a half now, right?
Well, and the quality was just horrific.
The worst
pressing.
120-gram vinyl and just awful.
And mono.
Yes.
Fuck.
Terrible.
It's terrible. Okay, we're done for this week. We're just going to talk about a couple of concerts coming up this week of note.
Yes, Death Cab for Cutie at the RBC Amp on the 19th. The 21st at the same venue is the Black Crows. Also on the 21st at the Mod Club, Nick Lowe along with Lost Straight Jackets. And the CFNY, former CFNY house band at all of the festivals. Tea Party, along with Biff Naked at OLG up here in Niagara. And on the 26th should be interesting jazz show as Herbie Hancock is at Massey Hall. So there you go.
Fantastic. Okay. And, Death Cab for Cutie, our universal friend Dave Holden, who I just saw out in BC, he was the guy that called me up about, you got to check out this band. You got to check out this band, Death Cab for Cutie. And I was wow, love these guys.
Good band.
Thank you, Dave. Yes. They haven't played in a while here, right?
Right. Yeah, it's been a little while. Anyway. Yeah. As they say in rock and roll, listen to Black Sabbath, people. I also say, please listen to the new Jack White record. It's outstanding. And, for those of us that missed Angine de Poitrine, Scott, thank you for doing your imitation today. And we'll listen to them too. And don't forget to check out our playlist.
Yes. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.